Good morning to you. Welcome to a daily dose of joy. We're still doing farm edition down here at my family's farm. Everybody's working from the farm, and so I get to start my days here with y'all in solidarity to use our microdosing tools throughout the day. Positive tools for a positive brain chemistry that incrementally over time up-level the positive dose chemistry in our brain. A phenomenal thing. It's what helps us to be in an elevated emotional state, to see more clearly, to feel more vibrant energy in our body. All sorts of good stuff. I'm just some playing around. Today we're going to use the microdosing tool called a Whoopsie Daisy Story. And this is a little broader reaching than just a dose chemistry dump to our brain, in that it's also helping us to combat dosing our brain with can chemistry. That as you practice over time, when kerfuffles happen, when there's too many balls in the air and a couple of them fall, that you don't immediately go to a stress reaction and dosing our brain with cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. They're called the CAN neurotransmitters. They're the ones you don't want. They don't, a lot of that in our lives is not optimizing our health. And so we don't want them for just the wobbles of life. We want to train ourselves and our neural pathways to laugh at them. So, or to find some humor, to hold them more lightly. And that doesn't mean not to feel them, right? Like, you stub your toe, and if you want to cuss like a sailor for 5 minutes, just let that anger move right through you. And then, though, we just don't want to continue to build negative momentum and let it sort of create this grumpy irritation that moves through our day. I have some whoopsie daisy stories that kind of illustrate that lately. Dealing with a puppy. Oh, Lord, does it give you opportunities? And so, life happens, and somebody popped by and I needed to pop out. And so when I popped back in to where I usually keep an eye on the puppy in a contained area, so he wasn't in his crate, but he was in this like interim area where he kind of can't be loose in the house yet because he is still teething and eats everything. But he has this sort of contained area where he can kind of, as long as I'm around, do pretty well in. And I was outside for 10 minutes. I came back in and he'd chawn up on the rug. So I step outside and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I have a little angry dance. I do sometimes. And then I came in and I was like, you want to be a weaver. You want to be a carpet maker. And I just started trying to find the funny. And it was a little tough. I must admit, I was starting to get that can chemistry of like, irritated and frustrated and impatient. And, but as I went on farther and farther into the just bizarreness of it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to turn those little claws into knitting needles. I see you. You're going to make a loom out of your paws, aren't you? I just kept going. And at first it felt like intentional. It felt like an effort. But then after a while, even with him jumping around and being cuckoo, after a while, when I kept continuing with the absurd and the hyperbole of like, you're gonna eat the whole dang house, the humor started to come. It got lighter and lighter. And by the end, I was in his pen with him, sitting there, just laughing out loud, laughing my head off. And, so whoopsie daisy, mistakes happen. Some of them even costly mistakes, but that's all right. We get to live our life. We get to have a joyful life regardless of what's going on around us. So that was one example of where, what it can look like to use a Whoopsie Daisy story, live action. And I remember when I first started using Whoopsie Daisy stories, they weren't as funny as what I bring to y'all now. One, because I couldn't laugh that easily. So it looked a little bit more like this one with the puppy, which is why I thought it was important one to share. Because for some folks, it may not come totally easy yet to see the humor in the irritation and the disappointments or the wobbles of life. And so I wanted you to feel the solidarity that you can do it. You can do it. And even if it doesn't feel real funny in the moment, just the using hyperbole, like using exaggeration to describe what's going on, and using just ridiculousness to describe what's going on. And sometimes I even talk to myself out loud when I'm doing it to help me just, okay, I start to build the momentum in the car and start the wheels moving. And then the humor and the laughter come. And another way that I did it early on was, and I think I may have shared this with y'all before, but that I couldn't necessarily see the humor in it in the moment. But then I'd go back and revisit it and retell it. So a great thing about Whoopsie Daisy Stories, it's great social lubricant to play with your kids or your family, but to retell something from the day, and instead of, grumble, telling it and finding the funny in it to retell it. And so I remember going through a period of time where I would say, what was the worst thing that happened to you today? It sounds bizarre. And we challenge each other to figure out who could find a way to tell the worst thing that happened to them, but in a funny way, and or a silly way or exaggerated way, to get, and so it didn't always work. Sometimes it would just sound grumbly, and sometimes we would really hit on something that would tickle each other's fancy. But the great thing was it was helping us learn how to reframe, and quicker and quicker it started to come on the fly and get easier and easier. So I hope these help. I really, really want to give you the support and encouragement to play with the Whoopsie Daisy tool. It's one for OGs, some of the original gigglers who've been working with me for years, that it is part of the warp and the weft of their lives and makes a huge difference to them and how they engage with the world and how they move through the wobbles of life. So wanting to help spread that tool out into the world. And I hope these, spending a little time this morning giving you a little more information will help you find your Whoopsie Daisy stories. Let's take 3 gentle solidarity breaths for spending this time with this positive intention to hold lightly even the uncomfortable or the painful or the disappointment, to let ourselves feel those feelings and let them feel them in our body, and then move to some positive momentum and some humor and some lightness. May today surprise and delight you. I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow.